For more than 60 years, the line graph compares numbers for daily travel by employees in the United Kingdom using three main modes of transportation. Throughout the era depicted, the vehicle is by far the most common mode of transportation for UK commuters. In 1970, over 5 million UK commuters drove to work each day, while around 4 million and 2 million commuted by bus and rail, respectively. The number of people driving to work increased to 7 million in 2000, while the number of commuter train passengers increased to 3 million. The number of individuals who commute by vehicle is forecast to reach almost 9 million by 2030, while the number of people who travel by rail is expected to reach nearly 5 million. The graphic depicts a globe map that depicts all of the continents as well as notable wildfires that have occurred inside certain land masses. The figure clearly shows that large wildfires have increased dramatically throughout the continents of South and North America. In 1950, there were only 2 major wildfires, but by 2000, there were 45. If we talk about Asia, the frequency of incidents has increased since 1970, and the same is true for Oceania. In comparison to other parts of the globe, Africa is fortunate to see less big wildfires. Finally, I can say that in the last few decades, large forest conflagrations have grown considerably all across the world. This graph shows the total number of students that participated in high school athletics from 1971 to 2010. Boys' participation increased from 3.6 million to 4.4 million between 1971 and 1977, then dropped to almost 3.4 million before rising to 4.5 million in 2009. Girls' participation increased from 400,000 to 2 million between 1971 and 1977, then dropped to almost 1.9 million before rising to 2.6 million in 2009. This pattern holds true for both genders. Between 1985 and 1990, the line graph of wheat exports displays a very different pattern. Australia exported roughly 15 million tons of wheat in 1985, and 1 million tons more the following year, for a total of 16 million tons. Following then, there was a steady drop until 1989 and 1990, when it reached a plateau of around 11 million tons. The number of Canadian exports fluctuated dramatically throughout the same time period. It began at 19 million tons in 1985, peaked at 24 million tons in 1988, plummeted to 14 million tons in 1989, and then climbed back to 19 million tons in 1990. Over the last 5 years, Australia's exports have decreased, despite significant fluctuations in the Canadian market and a rise in the European community. In the years 2005 and 2010, the two pie charts compare the percentages of internet sales across several retail industries in Canada. Food and beverage has the highest percentage of the internet market in 2010, accounting for 32%, while home furnishings has the smallest amount of online sales. We can see that customers prefer to buy video games and food and beverage online during the last 5 years, but online sales of home furnishings, electronics, and appliances have dropped significantly. A basic yet multicolor bar graph depicts how college fees are paid by students or learners, which is interesting information. Specifically, the graph reveals that grants and scholarships are the primary sources of funding, accounting for 31% of the total, followed by parents' income and savings, which account for 30%. Student debts, as well as student income and savings, are reported at 15% and 12%, respectively. The tiniest portion comes from family and friends. Overall, it can be stated that when it comes to paying for college, there are several options. The numerous climatic zones of this planet are depicted in this map, with latitudes 60°N and 60°S indicating the northern and southernmost regions of the Earth. The polar zone may be found. The yellow areas denote the temperate zone, between 30°N and 60°N, as well as 30°S to 60°S latitudes. The green regions on the globe represent the location of the tropical zone. The Arctic, temperate, and tropical regions all fall under the umbrella term climate zones. From 1960 to 2010, this line graph depicts the yearly average number of hospital visits in Glasgow, Scotland, per resident. Hospital visits per capita in 1960 averaged 2.23 per year. In 1990, this number climbed significantly to 2.5. The average number of hospital visits per person per year had increased to 3.2 in 2010. Between 1960 and 2010, the average number of hospital visits per person in Glasgow increased. These activities are shown graphically in the bar chart, which indicates how many men and women participate in each. Most popular among women were languages, 40 participants, followed by sculpting, 9 participants, 5 people. Sculpture was the least popular pastime for males, with 30 persons participating in the activity, 5 people. For both sexes, language was the most popular pastime, but art was the most popular among males. Men and women both rated sculpture as their least favorite pastime activity. This timeline depicts the world's population from 1650 to 2000. There were 550 million people on the planet in 1650. In 1850, there were 1,175,000,000 people, and in 1950, there were 2,556,000,000 people. The global population peaked in the year 2000 at 6,080,000,000 people. Between 1650 and 2000, the world's population grew significantly. An LED and a glass cover may be seen in this photograph of a solar light. The lamp cover and the glass cover include all of the solar yard light's components. The solar light's battery, controller board, and LED are all placed near the bottom. The photoresistor and photovoltaic cells are also within. All in all, the solar light has a number of different components. The percentage of Texans killed by weather-related causes from 1988 to 2005 is shown in this pie chart. Flooding and heat-related mortality accounted for the majority of all weather-related deaths. Winter storms, high winds, tropical systems, lightning, and tornadoes all account for around the same number of deaths as other types of weather. Heat and floods were the primary causes of death in Texas. The strata of the Earth are depicted in this illustration. The crust is the Earth's outermost layer, and it ranges in thickness from 5 to 25 miles. At 1,800 miles below surface, The mantle and outer core are found 1,400 miles. Finally, the Earth's inner core measures 800 miles thick and is located deep within the planet. From the outer crust to the deep core, the Earth is composed of several layers. The image is a world map that shows all the continents and the major wildfire events within those land masses. It is clear from the image that in the continents of South and North Americas, the major wildfire has grown significantly, as in 1950, there was hardly an event of 2, but in 2000, it had reached to 45. If we talk about Asia, the events will have become more frequent from 1970, which is the same case for Oceania. The continent of Africa, compared to other places on the map, is lucky to have fewer events of major wildfires. Finally, I can conclude that all across the world, the events of major conflagrations in forests have significantly increased in a few past decades. There is a predicted growth in global oil output in million barrels per day seen in this bar graph. There was a period between 1980 and 2000 when oil output worldwide averaged roughly 11 million barrels per day from non-OPEC sources. In the period from 2000 to 2010, the world's oil output grew by almost 18 million barrels per day. OPEC Middle East accounted for around 8 million of these. Oil production throughout the world is expected to decline slightly from 2010 to 2020, with an average daily output of 17 million barrels. OPEC Middle East provides the great majority of this. Global oil output is expected to peak at roughly 17 million barrels per day between 2010 and 2020, with the bulk of that coming from OPEC Middle East countries like Saudi Arabia and Iraq. It is clear that there are 5 distinct stages in this process, beginning with the capture of energy from sunlight. The final 2 steps show how domestic electricity is connected to the external power supply. At the first stage in the process, solar panels on the roof of a normal house take energy from the sun and convert it into DC current. Next, this current is passed through an inverter, which changes it to AC current and regulates the supply of electricity. At stage 3, electricity is supplied to the home from an electrical panel. At the 4th step shown in the diagram, a utility meter in the home is responsible for sending any extra electric power outside the house into the grid. Finally, if the solar panels do not provide enough energy for the household, electricity will flow from the utility grid into the home through the meter. This photograph depicts many aspects of a Stone Age dwelling. The triangular-shaped thick thatch encloses the wattle and daub-built dwelling. There are logs for sitting, beds, and a main fireplace in the inside of the house. Additionally, there is a place where meats and fish may be smoked and preserved. There is no need for a chimney because the thatch releases the smoke. A Stone Age home has a variety of characteristics, including thick thatch and logs. The irregular shape map of the African continent gives critical information on food security and climate change. Various color blocks show the adaptability of various climates and malaria stability. It is undeniable that the majority of the map's central sections are shaded in red, indicating a climate that is malaria-free. As we progress through the color boxes of data, we see that the lighter the hue, the less suited the environment for malaria stability. The white and light blue colors, on the other hand, indicate 0.1 or 0 unit of malarial stability. I'm surprised there isn't much information on food in the image. Still, we can state that there is a combination of climates across the African continent that supports malarial conditions at times and does not at others. From 1970 to 2000, this line graph shows the annual consumption of fast food vs sit-down restaurants. 1970 was the year when the average number of meals consumed from fast food and sit-down restaurants was 20 per year. The number of meals eaten at fast food and sit-down restaurants has both grown, although the increase in fast food meals was more rapid, reaching an annual peak of roughly 85 meals in 2000. Both sit-down meals, on the other hand, rose to an all-time high of 45 per year in 2000. Both fast food and sit-down restaurants served less than 20 meals a year on average in 1970, according to the NPD Group. In 2000, fast food restaurants served an average of 85 meals per year, whereas sit-down restaurants served an average of 45 meals per year. Using this graph, you can see how to type correctly and incorrectly on a computer keyboard. The green flagged figures on the left show the correct method of typing, with the hands placed evenly over the keyboard, at a straight angle. On the right, you'll see statistics that are highlighted in red since they depict incorrect typing positions. There are pictures of hands that are too far apart and pictures of hands that are too near. In addition, their hands are shown at unnatural angles, either too high or too low. In the workplace, this graphic might serve as a reminder for employees on proper typing technique.